The New Britain Board of Education, providing students with a high-quality education.
Good evening. We're going to call the Board of Ed meeting to order. It's okay. You're squishing me. We're squishing each other. We're loving each other today.
We're a little tight tonight.
Just a little
We're a close-knit group.
It's all right. All right. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Just don't knock anybody over. Over there.
No, I know. I was looking to see who's over there. Ms. Rodriguez, if you would lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, the third person. I was referring to myself. I just didn't say it. Mr. Kanata, if you would please call the roll.
Ms. Cheney?
Here.
Mr. Gay?
Here.
Ms. Muniz? Mr. Mercier?
Here.
Ms. Parker?
Here.
Ms. Nancy Rodriguez?
Here.
Mr. Sanders?
Here.
Ms. Sanders Connolly?
Here.
Ms. Sims?
Here.
And Ms. Nicole Rodriguez.
Here. Thank you. We can pause for a brief moment of meditation. Thank you. We will now have public participation. We have 3 people signed up to speak. The first is Michael Palin. Please state your name and address for the record.
I sure can. My name is Michael Palin. I live at 72 Sherrill Street in New Britain, Connecticut. You've heard from me before. The last information session, or the chance for parents and the community to speak. I was there. Also the first speaker last time. I still have burning questions about this new scheduling system. And I'm presently the president of the PMA, which is the Parent Music Association, band booster, what have you. And I have pretty much unlimited access to lots of different faculty because of the nature of the position. I'm at the school a lot. My wife works at the school. And I still have these questions, and I query everyone I can about what's going on and what's the potential for this change and why is this change even happening, and I can't get answers out of anyone. All I can do is speculate, okay? Last time Michael Foran spoke, and I understand where he's coming from, 64 out of 66. I understand. Parents in this community understand that number. They send their children to our schools. They need to understand that number, and I think they do. With that number, something has to change. Something has to be tried. New approaches have to be taken. Something, because the status quo is not working. I get that. I understand that. I was a teacher for 10 years. I went through all sorts of different strategies and implementations in multiple districts. Some of them worked, some of them failed miserably. So the driving force behind this whole scheduling change, I don't want to be bending over while I'm talking. The driving force behind the scheduling change has come from being on the state commission, right? We get funds for being on the commission because we're in a dangerous school or an underperforming school. And we get a grant from the state to help us out. So we chose to spend that money on a third-party consultant to help us out, to give us their opinion, to give us their solution to make New Britain Public Schools better. Good idea. But I was told by numerous sources that before this decision was made on scheduling, that teachers and parents were consulted about this decision. I saw no evidence of it anywhere. No evidence of it. I've been trying to be an investigator here, and I'm not coming up with any answers that will satisfy me. All this is a preamble for me to ask one major question. That major question is that, can you tell me that the next school year, the entering freshmen, the returning sophomores, are going to have the same variety and choices available to them that students in the previous school year had? Or are those choices going to be limited because of scheduling? That's the burning question. We are a district known for supporting the fine arts. We have a VH1 $500,000 plus grant, and we're changing the schedule to possibly, because it's all speculation, limit the amount of exposure to the music program, the incoming students. Good question. Would that put us in violation of the grant? Because if you look at the specifications for that grant, they're very specific about offering music and music education to all the students. Read it carefully, that grant. You may be jeopardizing it. Okay? Number two, we are a district that's renowned for our music performance. Renowned. For years. If any of you attended that Music Mania concert this year, you can see the fruits of the last 10 years of real hard work to bring our music program up to a standard that is equal to any other high school around. It was a spectacular performance. And the reason why it was a spectacular performance is because there was no limitation to student participation in musical performing ensembles. They received years of experience rehearsing and learning about their craft, and the evidence was on that stage. Every single one of them was amazingly proud to be on that stage because of the skills and to be able to showcase the skills that they learned. Now, all indicators, again, indicators to me, are that the schedule limitations next fall are going to severely impact the options incoming freshmen and sophomores will have. All indicators are telling me that. I hope not, because you're shooting yourself in the foot. This is what the district's known for. You have a large community of people in New Britain that have lots of educational options. My two students went to middle school at a magnet school. We chose to put them in the program here in New Britain because of its diversity and the ability for this school to give choices in language, in fine arts, that were unparalleled. You're taking that away. I have to warn you that a lot of New Britain residents who have the option to go to a magnet school may think about it differently now. Be very, very careful with your choices, because to get, you have to give. And what you're giving away needs to be carefully considered, because it impacts the children that we love. Thank you.
Right now, is he leaving or is he gonna stay? Who would it be now? Just so you know, we are having an information session across the hall in the auditorium at 7 o'clock about the scheduling, and it's for high school only. So at 7 o'clock, there will be a meeting across the hall about that specific issue. So you'll have a chance to ask the administrators and participate in that. And that's for everyone. We are all invited to go across the hall at 7 o'clock. Well, you guys are held hostage with me, so all right. The next person on the list is Vincent Celentano, I'm sorry. Please state your name and address for the record.
Vincent Celentano, 140 Adams Street, Britain, Connecticut. I'm here as the outgoing president of the Britain High School Parent Music Association. The past 4 years, the PMA has raised $64,000 to pay for 100 new marching band uniforms, 30 new magical costumes, scholarships. We've increased the number of scholarships and the amount per student, as well as funding miscellaneous maintenance, replacing uniforms, etc. I'm an advocate of music instruction, especially at a very young age, and it's always a worry to me personally when we hear school districts, whether here or anywhere else, discuss scheduling, how it may affect fine arts or other programs, but particularly fine arts and especially music. Playing or learning how to play music involves auditory, visual, motor, and the emotional centers of the brain. It's an intellectual discipline. The evidence continues to mount, demonstrating that musical instruction will improve a child's language and cognitive skills. Studies are being conducted or have been conducted on at-risk youth. That's a big controversial topic. And in underserved areas to track the effect intensive music instruction will have on the academic trajectory of lower income children. It is undeniable that music instruction, especially when begun at a young age, will only improve a child's academic performance and enrich their lives. This is irrefutable. And it's a mystery to me why music isn't mandatory, especially beginning a child's 5 or 6 years old. Plato, the Greek philosopher, is quoted as saying, "Music is wings to the mind." And so it's my hope, and I will always support music, and I hope the district will take this into consideration whenever a scheduling matter that affects music is considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Janice Briateri. I think I see that. Yeah. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Janice Baratieri, and I reside at 129 Amherst Street. I am a mom of 6 with 2 in Kinsella Magnet School, who I'm pulling to bring them back to Holmes Elementary School. It's a choice that I've made in an effort to kind of bring our babies home, and I feel like both districts are struggling with their own things, and if we're going to do it, I want to have them home with me where I feel like it can have more an impact. And one thing we do here, maybe not everybody agrees, but I've always felt welcome in the school district, and I've always felt heard. So in an effort to have an impact and help them, I'm bringing them back home. One of my sons, my oldest, struggles with a nonverbal learning disability. It's actually a learning disability which, while we designate him in the school with having a learning disability, it's not just in terms of the way he reads or the way he writes. His also mirrors different aspects of issues on an autism spectrum. So it's been really hard because the federal laws that protect our special education students don't necessarily protect Joey's specific type of learning disability. He doesn't cause any issues in class, and he tests really well on a standardized test. But during the class, he'll often look if he wasn't getting help, like he didn't care, or he wasn't listening, or maybe he wasn't as smart as Mom had said to everyone. One of the best things that have helped us through the last 2 years in particular, as the requirements for the grade level have gotten harder, is his time in his gifted and talented classroom. It's been a smaller ratio, and it's been something that's really fed his interests. So in our efforts to pass standardized tests, we have definitely limited our children's exposure to science and social studies, and I'm excited and hopeful for the changes. I do have my concerns just in terms of budget and will it really happen the way we all hope that it happens, but that's besides the point. Either way, his Gifted and Talented program was really a saving grace for him, and I was hopeful in bringing up my daughter from Kinsella to also be in that program. It was something that she was approved for. And I am very disappointed to hear that it just didn't make the cut of things this year. You know, we have struggles with our special needs students and meeting those needs, but our gifted and talented students are also students with special needs. We can lose them very easily if they're not engaged in their classroom. And it's really a risk that I would hate to see us take. They're the ones that are really, they're not the ones. I mean, understand that not all of my children will be designated gifted and talented, so I don't mean to offend anybody else whose student might not be. But they're the ones that a lot of the times take the learning to a different level in that classroom. But if they feel disinterested and not engaged, then you're not going to hear them as much. And that would be just a really sad thing to see. The other thing is, you know, so that's my thing. I would really like to see gifted and talented be brought back in. The other thing I wanted to do, and I wasn't sure if this was okay, is some of us from the PTA at homes are just trying to connect with other PTAs. So if I could put that out there to everyone who might have a PTA or PTO or even involve parents, just to kind of, over the summer, work together to do things for our kids and advocate, maybe fill a void where someone had mentioned Urban Voices was previously. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I saw someone else who wanted to address the board.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. If you,
My name-
your name and address,
This
please.
one or this? My name is Maha Abdullah, and I work with the New Britain School District. I actually teach at Pulaski Middle School, and I supervise a lot of translation between Arabic and English. I've been consulted with, issues connecting with the families here, Arabic-speaking families or Muslim families from New Britain. But I'm here to tell you today about a new program that I was able to bring to New Britain, and I hope that we have some kind of support or collaboration in the near future. So this new program I worked on, and it started with a friend of mine. We were able to convince Middlebury College to, with an initiative, we succeeded to have an initiative that aims to connect university-level Arabic learners with recently arrived Arabic-speaking refugee and immigrant families for a summer program. So the first program this is like the pioneer or the pilot. It will be from July 2nd to August 3rd, and it is only 5 weeks. But we're hoping that in the near future to do it, of probably like a full semester or even year-round. The program's goal is to foster stronger ties between recently arrived families and their new communities, while also educating college-level Arabic students about challenges facing refugee and immigrant families in the U.S. The program is called Jiran, which means neighbors in Arabic, and it's co-equal. It basically centered on co-equal. So I'm going to help the students. The eligibility of the program for the students is that they would study at least 2 or 3 years Arabic of the college level, and then they would have studied abroad for at least a semester. And so we had actually 17 applicants. We were surprised, but Middlebury told us because it's a pilot program, we only are allowed to start with 5. We wish to have 6 because we already have a house rented for them. The meals are already arranged. Our speakers are coming. Everything is fine. But Middlebury said, let's start with 5. So far we're working on the schedule, but we're going to have the students have 2 hours extensive in co-equal Arabic, and then I match them with families here from New Britain. Mostly 4 of them are refugees families or asylum status, and 1 Yemeni family. So I was able to break into the Yemeni community. It was so hard to convince them, but we got at least 1 family. And I'm very happy to match these families with the students, so that the students will be spending 2 hours at the family's home, also to be exposed, to be immersed, but also to help these families in kind of assimilating into the culture, you know, meeting neighbors, access the system, you know, as simple as just go and apply for, a program or access a bank account or study for citizenship, these things. We also have guest lectures and we have keynote speakers, so we're in the process of finalizing a schedule, but we have invited guests like Zina Tawfiq from the city of New Britain. She will come and talk about the history of New Britain on the first day of classes, July 2nd. And we have Dia Abdo coming as the founder and director of every campus of refugee. We have Kathy Lebel is helping us from UConn about research. It's going to come to present to our students and our community families. And we have somebody who's coming, John Boer, who's coming from to work on, to present about highlights in asylum and immigration law. All of these topics that have been going on in the community. And I would like to welcome anybody from New Britain Public School System, the board members, to come stop by anytime. We were very lucky to have the Islamic Center on our street to host our classes and our events and everything. We're going to open a lot of workshops to the public. Anybody who's in need to come. We're going to do a lot of events. Part of the fundraising we're doing is a dialogue dinner, so we're going to have that on our website also. But if anybody would like, we can, once that schedule is done, we can just send a copy of that. We look for your coming, visiting us and support. Thank you very much. I was very happy to bring this to New Britain, to convince Middlebury that New Britain is the place, out of all Connecticut or Maine or a different state. But very happy to present that to the board today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Anyone else who would like to address the board? Okay, seeing none, public participation is closed. We'll entertain a motion for executive session.
Yes, we have, I move that we go into executive session. We have a couple legal matters. We have attorneys here to speak on, so I motion that we go into executive session to receive those updates.
Second.
Who will need to be in those meetings? And Dr. Tucker will be in those meetings along with Superintendent Sarah. All in favor?
Aye.
By saying aye. Right, everybody get up and go. Those opposed?
Okay, we all need to just figure this out.
Okay, so. I don't bang it much, but every once in a while, it's freezing back here.
It is. Oh, see,
Now we're close. We're gonna have body heat. I have a sweater, but it doesn't match the outfit.
I'm a space heater. Fit right in.
All right. No, we are not. We are going to have the superintendent's report. Motion to go back into. Okay, good.
Okay, I'm gonna read this for the record. There's quite a bit I want to kind of go over tonight. So I'm hoping not to exceed 10 minutes. You could set the timer for me.
Setting the time.
Okay.
10 minutes.
And I talk quickly.
10 minutes.
Oh, my phone.
Just to give you an update where we are in terms of academics. Notice it's the old form and not the new form because I cannot work in that new form. Anyway, so we had our STEAM work group is working on curriculum. Defined STEM PD took place last week for all the new STEAM teachers. The sessions were very well received by the teachers. The STEAM PD will be ongoing throughout the year during STEAM NBU. Draft scope and sequence planning documents have been created. So students at the primary level will be learning about animal plant structures and needs through the study of honeybees. Motion through the study of pushes and pulls and the Earth's resources through the study of organic farming. Those are just some of the things that our younger students will be getting next year. Purchase orders will be coming in, just so you know, within the coming weeks, using mostly all of our grant dollars that we have. Curriculum development around our career tech ed manufacturing in grades 6 through 12. Resources are ample and will include new STEM 101 modules. As a STEM 101 grant recipient, we receive a 3-year term license of STEM 101 curriculum and online professional development. For our career tech ed, information technology, grades 6 through 8, the IT curriculum is in draft form and has been piloted all throughout the year this year in our middle schools. The scope and sequence is vertically aligned to the high school principles of information technology curriculum, as well as the Academy of IT and Manufacturing at the high school. So you see vertical alignment now in grades 6 through 12, and we're hoping to get our K through 5 students engaged in this sort of discovery work and STEAM. For talent development, and this is one sentence, it clearly doesn't really show the amount of hours that we spent, but we've been holding individual meetings with the president from Local 871 and some of the executive board, as well as teachers one by one with administrators talking about the moves to just build that bridge back. I think the conversations have gone very well overall. As far as operations go, elementary scheduling update, I thought this would be relevant. The schedule accommodates the STEAM and teacher mobility to travel to and from NBU. Elementary students will receive STEAM enrichment class 1 time per week. And I will say that the STEAM teachers are being trained now in grouping the students accordingly. So if there are 4 classrooms of first grade at Vance, we have 4 STEAM teachers that will be on site there. And it's looking at potential groupings of students. And so I just wanted to address that while I know LEAP, the name of LEAP, is not a name we're using right now, STEAM is really very similar. It is the same kind of curriculum, and we can differentiate and group students accordingly. So when first graders are having STEAM at any particular school, they are all together in a group, and they can be grouped accordingly to ability levels. It can change up halfway through the year. So there's freedom on that team of professionals to do what's right for all students. There will be a daily mandatory 30-minute recess period every day for all of our students in kindergarten through grade 5. The new arts, PE, and music elective trimester scheduling at the elementary school will recognize a 13% increase of instructional time with students per school year. Our current schedule is 20% of the school days. The new rotation will recognize 33% school days. So I just broke it down a little bit more. In our current schedule, students receive 2 days a week, 30-minute blocks of electives for both music and PE. They do already have 1 day per week where they get 60 minutes of art in one chunk of time. The total hours that they are seen in that elective, per elective, is 36 hours. Under the new schedule, we will have 5 55-minute blocks for all electives: art, music, and physical education. This is at elementary only right now. So the total hours will be 60 hours. We're gaining 24 hours of instructional time. It just looks different, and that's what's really, it's hard for people to take that leap that having 60 hours of something more condensed. And I want to point out too, as far as the arts and music go, that for those students who are in band, chorus, or string or instruments, their instruction lasts throughout the entire year. That's not something that's on the trimester. Page 2. As far as the middle school scheduling, Jeff Prokop, I know, has been holding tutorial sessions twice a week with our middle school administrators around the schedule at the middle school. They are making really good progress. They check in with me once every 2 weeks. We have a team that sit together to problem solve. We just had one this afternoon. Questions are being asked and answered, and the design is moving along very well. At the elementary level, it's tightly done. At the middle school level, we're coming along, and at the high school scheduling, schedule will allow for flexibility and student choice. Students will have access to electives as a 5-day option at 49 minutes per day, or a 1-day option at 147 minutes per week. Attention has been paid to whether the class content is able to be facilitated well in one format versus another, and determining which electives will be offered at what times. So I can liken it to a college campus when you're taking a course 1 day a week. I used to take Saturday morning courses from 8 to 10 in the morning versus 5 days a week. And so the students have those options of choosing a 5-day elective or a 1-day elective. I'll just give you an example. Foreign language will be offered as a 5-day option, not a 1-day option. Clearly it's not, but when we look at something like design design elements in art. That is something that will be offered once a week versus 5 days, or ceramics, or painting, that sort of thing. As far in the partnership office, we had our first informational session for redesign on May 31st. And the reason I did a 24-hour turnaround time was we had about 100 parents with us on that very same evening for our first annual awards night for our K-8 students. And they were in the audience, and I said, well, I've got quite a few people in the audience. I'm going to just offer the session there for those people who had questions. Additional redesign informational sessions will be hosted at the building level throughout the summer. Administrators will be having 3 to 4 informational sessions at their building, scattered throughout times, so that parents who work maybe in the evenings will have a morning session and an evening session as well. And we're also going to be talking about the redesign during open house during the first weeks of school at each building. The first informational session for New Britain High School is going on right now across the hall in the auditorium. As far as my office and the continued communication, we are working, and I say we, and it's really not me, but it's my cabinet who has been working hours and hours and hours, and I just have to say they work tirelessly for this. They are publishing an FAQ for so frequently asked question document, one for families, one for teachers, and one for administrators. So for the families and the community partners actually are one. And then one for teachers and one for administrators. So that we all the questions that were asked at that first informational session, as well as questions we anticipate are coming, we are creating that FAQ. It'll go through its first vetting with our administrators next week during their administrator PD time after school lets out. Mm-hmm. And then I also have, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, we've been having cross-union meetings, and they'll also have their eyes on it to vet the document as well before we send it out. We'll be sending it out via robocall and email to families, as well as hard copies in the mail for our families. There will also be a video created for the parents. We'll probably, and Matt's going to get creative with me here, but it's probably going to just go up on our website, so our families can access it with a phone call for me to just say that it's up and live on the website. We're also creating a brochure for our parents and our community members. We're going to be having those around the city in different places, at daycares, at nursery schools, etc., so they know about the change. Some good news: we had our grade 1. We have in first grade we have intentional play in kindergarten, but we didn't call it play in first grade, but it's called Imagineering, and Imagineering is really STEAM. And so we've had a lot of people wanting to come out to see what we're doing in New Britain, which is a real testament to the hard work our teachers are doing in the classrooms. So Enfield Public Schools came to Holmes Elementary. That was actually this afternoon. Chief Academic Officer and the STEM coordinator at the and partnership coordinator from Enfield Public Schools visited in grade 1 classrooms this afternoon. I have to say thank you to the Holmes teachers in grade 1, because a week before school gets out is not when you really want to be hosting visitors, but they are troopers and they did it. So we've had a number of school districts. Middletown has come out, Meriden has come out, Danbury, and Enfield today to reach out to visit our play and Imagineering programs in kindergarten and grade 1. So got very good feedback from that. And I just was talking to Ms. Anderson before it started, and what they were really impressed by was our students' ability to collaborate and work together. So that was nice. Ms. Sanford and I will be traveling to New York City on Thursday. We were invited to join, it's called the Best in Class Advisory Board Leaders at the inaugural National Convening of Advisory Board Leaders. This is through our National Academy Foundation. So I call it a think tank. There's a lot of other words there, but they are looking for our feedback on how to make this academy model work, the pathways work. And so we were invited. I think 40 of us were invited out of 600. Was that close, Ms. Sanford?
Yes.
Okay.
Or with 50 individuals across the entire U.S.
Right. And so we'll be with 48 others in the United States talking about the academy model and what we think needs to keep happening to get better. I talked to you about the frequently asked question sheets. And I'm going to move a little bit down. So we do have in development, we have a new partnership with First Church of Simsbury. and Mr. and Mrs. Butler. The partnership's purpose is to provide New Britain High School students in the education pathway to experience pre-teaching opportunities by mentoring elementary students. The partnership includes financial funding for 10 students in the education pathway to complete the work-based learning scope or internship, and a sequence culminating in a compensated internship. So they are donating money for our students to get their work-based learning done at an elementary school. And you know, we're working hard on really trying to create that talent pipeline into education for our subgroups, our minority groups. And Dr. Tucker will talk a little bit about that in a couple of minutes about something she's looking like she doesn't know, but you know, what we had going on today. Oh, okay. I want to talk just a little bit about the climate and culture, not so much with our students, but with our adults in the district and the difficulty around change and how hard that is for people. About 4 weeks ago, I reached out to both the president of the teachers union and the president of the administrators union to say we need to put ourselves together, because not only is there a lack of communication, but there's miscommunication, and we need to fix this. So for the past 4 weeks, executive leadership from Local 51 and 871, the talent office, Dr. Tucker, Dr. Sanders, and myself have been meeting to identify what the biggest area of concerns are from a district perspective. Attached is a collective message to all staff that was crafted and developed by this team. All voices were at the table, and a draft statement was vetted and developed by this team. And I'm going off my script now for just a minute. I will say I left Friday afternoon. Friday was my best day in a long few weeks, I will say. And it was nice to not always agree, and that's okay that we're not always going to agree, but to sit together and come up with a common message of why change, why now. And so it's our first step in strengthening our relationships among the staff in New Britain and ensuring clear, consistent communication is ongoing. We're committed to coming together on a regular basis. And I will just give the names of the folks who are involved in the committee. It's myself, Dr. Tucker, Dr. Sanders, our Mr. Mark Fernandes, president of Local 51, Mr. Salas Caballas, president of 871. Other Local 51 executive leaders are Mr. Ortiz, Ms. Shea, Mr. Foran, and from the 871 or Teachers Union is Ms. Humenick, Mr. Carey, Mr. Scalise, and Mr. Gray. And I hope I didn't forget anyone there. And I'd like to read this now. This is the joint message from the superintendent, our cabinet, and the executive leaderships of both of the unions. And so we wrote this together. We were actually chatting online yesterday, making sure that it was ready to go. Why redesign? Instructional time well spent and talent are the two greatest resources we can give to our students and to each other. We are here to improve outcomes for all students and improve our practice. That is the it of the redesign. All students will be offered project-based collaborative enrichment opportunities. Our current system has not supported the desired student growth that we are seeking as a collective group. We must transform our current system to improve student performance and teacher and organizational effectiveness through collaboration. Our collective goals for the district-wide collaboration include engage in professional dialogue about student work to make informed instructional decisions for all students, improve teacher capacity to meet the academic, social, emotional, and behavioral needs of our diverse learners, design assignments that have high predictive value to inform district and state assessment results, ensure accountability and alignment, and these are highlighted, recognize improved outcomes for all students, build and sustain integrity for our organizational effectiveness. Why now? Lack of local and state education dollars. Our current per pupil expenditure in New Britain ranks 167 out of 169 when compared to all towns and cities in Connecticut. In order to accomplish our goal of improving student outcomes and collective teacher practice, balancing the budget meant shifting talent to accomplish this goal. The need to maintain full-time teachers, even with retirements, and lack of discretionary funds was necessary to identify a sustainable solution to our financial deficit. How will we know it's working? The importance of feedback is critical to its success. The most important feedback at this initial stage of implementation is from you, the stakeholders. We need to know what is working well and what is a challenge during the collaborative structure for teachers during NBU or New Britain University, and the time we are providing enrichment electives for our students. We are committed to ongoing cross-union, solution-focused team meetings with the superintendent and the cabinet, the executive leadership from the administrators and teachers union that began in late May, which recognizes we are only beginning with what will be an ongoing process. This team will continue to meet regularly to bring the pertinent challenges and successes to the table to discuss. The goals of this solution-focused team is to listen to the needs of all members who have concerns and support them accordingly. A second goal is to ensure that stakeholders are a part of this decision-making process. We believe the outcomes will contribute to an improved district-wide culture and climate by developing and maintaining trusting relationships and improved communication throughout our system. We believe student academic and social emotional outcomes will improve as adult learning improves and will be measured using multiple data points, including, but not limited to, common district-wide benchmark assessments, grade-appropriate assessments, and statewide indicators. We are committed to continuing our collective work to improve outcomes for students and staff in partnership, and it lists out our Local 871, Local 51, Cabinet, and the superintendent. So, was that 10 minutes?
No.
I thought
He turned it off for the first 10 minutes.
Was it 20?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I will say too, I always look to say when something comes that feels negative, you've got to look for the positives. And what I think that has come out of this is that for the first time we are bringing people together at the table, and having met families who are very invested in our school system, and knowing that I can bring them to the table as well to give me honest answers on what's working and what's not working. So to me, that it's a win, even though you had to go through pain to get there, but that it's a win. So that's it. I'm done.
You sure?
Well,
Dr. Tucker?
Sure. Oh, Dr. Tucker.
I was like, wait, you're not done.
Sorry.
All right. Just wanted to share some positive, good news with you. I'll ask Mr. Escobalos to join me because he was with me today for the launch of our Educators Rising program, and he's been an integral part of working with the team to make this happen. Many of you know that we have had a YES Club, a Young Educator Society, some people call it Future Teacher Leaders here at the high school for years, under the leadership of Sandy Fraioli. And we discussed this somewhat in our personnel committee meetings a couple of months back as to what we were doing. Our program moving forward is going to be called Educators Rising, and we are now moving down into the middle school grade, and those students from our targeted school, Loretto, that will transition into the high school will be a seamless process. So we've had two program launches of our new program, one here at the high school last week with Ms. Fraioli and these students that are here. We have the other launch today at Loretto, and I'd say we must have had about a good 18 to 20 kids that were there today. And they came on their own because they have expressed interest in the field of education or possibly being a teacher. So we had only 7th and 8th graders because that's the grades that we are targeting. And so I have a statement from the teachers that I just want to share with you about the program. They are very excited. And the 3 teachers that will be working in the program, we have Sandy Fraioli, and we have Colleen Moffett-Malles here at the high school. And at the middle school level at Loretto, we have Jessica Otero-Leon. And so we attended that launch today. And they couldn't be here, but they wanted you to know that Educators Rising is a program that will begin at the start of next school year. It is designed to inspire future educators at the middle and high school level who have an interest in exploring teaching as a profession. Through classroom instruction and extracurricular activities, the students will be able to tutor, mentor, and take part in service learning projects. In addition, students will be able to connect with peers and experts around the country who are focusing on the same issues and challenges in education. Educators Rising will showcase teaching as a complex and rewarding profession that inspires students to pursue it as a career. There is a disparity in our district between teachers of color and our student population. Diversity is a concern. It is our mission to cultivate an interest early on and develop our education pathway. We in New Britain want to find a way to inspire future educators. We want to grow our own. And those 3 educators from New Britain will be trained this summer in the Educators Rising curriculum, and that is the curriculum that we will use at both the middle, at DiLoretto, and at the high school level. And I must say those 3 teachers have really given their all, and they're really, really excited about growing the program and now moving from middle and pushing up into high school. So we will be having various activities throughout. They're going to expose the kids to some field trips. A couple, they've already done one that they really enjoyed. That was the Kids Speak competition that CHRO sponsored at UConn Law School about 2 or 3 weeks ago that our students were able to participate in.
Excellent.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, from our standpoint, we're looking to, because we know these sorts of programs need money, and money's tight right about now. So from the standpoint of the AFT, we're committed to this. I'm on the state minority teacher recruitment task force. It's something we talked about. Grow your own is probably the thing that'll solve our issues. You know, I want our kids I want our future teachers to come from our kids. That's including my daughter, who wasn't at the meeting today, but will be at the meeting next week. So I'm committed to going back to AFT and begging and asking for money, just as I did with the teacher fellowship program. And I think it's a good start. We just got to kind of keep it alive, because I know during budgetary crisis times, it's hard to keep those programs sustained. So. Just from my standpoint, that's what we're going to do. It was a good crowd there, a good crowd of kids, good-looking group of young people that would make great teachers, I think, when the opportunity presents itself. So, thanks.
Thank you, Sal.
Thank you. All right, one moment to recognize Alderman Salerno back there. Thank you so much, sir, for gracing us with your presence. All right, committee meetings and reports. So, we'll start with policy, and we'll do policy, finance, curriculum, and personnel in that order.
So policy meant we discussed 3 different policies, 2 of which are coming forward tonight. We're also, for our next month, going to be reviewing student discipline and at our next meeting, student code of conduct and discipline and all of that, and looking over those procedures and regulations as well. Is it?
Okay.
Less than 10 minutes.
Good job.
I'm last.
Finance.
I'll start with we're gonna get, what is it called? It's not Resuscit Annie, it's Nursing Ann
Something Annie, I
Simulator.
saw
Yeah,
that,
it's like
yeah.
it
looks really cool.
Yeah, it's like way cool. It's better than Resuscit Annie for all you old people. I'm old, I'm right there with you. Older people, I should say. I know. What else did we do? What'd you say? You're insulted? I'm sorry. I apologize. I was right. Resuscit Annie. I know who Resuscit Annie is. Let's see. Oh, the NBHS Academy of IT and Manufacturing Labs.
Those look cool too. The Mac
Those
labs.
look way cool. The Mac Labs,
So
they're
cool.
going to be like way cool. So those are 2 big things. And then we do have a few donations. One, $750 for
Tubas.
for tubas.
Yes.
For the Tuba Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And then $5,000 for Extreme Summer for NASA learning. How cool is that for summer program? We find money, Mr. Salerno. That's all I have.
All right. Finance.
Shots fired.
Curriculum.
We met for a little over a half hour, and our discussion started out with Nancy, Sarah letting us know that Italian classes are not being eliminated from the high school curriculum, which was a concern to many. And the bulk of the discussion then turned into myself discussing the guidelines for the Connecticut Seal of Biliteracy, which would be affixed on a high school diploma and transcript. The state voted for Connecticut to be a Seal of Biliteracy state last summer. And so we discussed that quite a bit, and we'll be waiting for, at the next meeting,
Ms. Sarah is supposed to look into and let us know what the district is doing in regards to this, to try to meet that and offer that to our students. And the policy committee will also look at this in regards to how policy affects it. And then we finished off by talking about report card changes in the upcoming school year in relation to the redesign, which includes at the earlier grades, the shift to trimesters, and adding the STEAM curriculum that we've been talking about in terms of enrichment, and that was pretty much it.
And last but not least, personnel.
Personnel, we looked at, for the second time, request for 2 new positions, high school welcome facilitators. That's gone through a couple of different iterations on the job. This has to do with the Commissioners Network, and I think they're in the packet. We also went over revised job description for literacy interventionist. Anybody wants to know more, that was purely revisions, updating, being more specific. Anybody wants to hear more about the welcome facilitators, if we haven't discussed it, you can pull it up, consent.
Okay. And then, as always, just want to put it out there, the committee meetings are posted on our website, and if you're interested in attending any of the committee meetings, we welcome teachers, staff, parents to come out to those committee meetings and talk with us. When we're making decisions, we'd like your input, so you are welcome to attend those and we can talk with you. Policy is always a good one. It's my favorite. Finance is a good one, where, you know, what we're doing with the money, and anyone is, you know, you're welcome to come. You can't vote, but you are welcome to come and find out what's going on and put in your input. But most of the time we do take a consensus and then we vote on it here, but we do want to hear from you. So please come out to those. Personnel is not so bad. I mean, it's not really well, when I say not so bad, it's not really an interactive one. It's more, much more of updates, but curriculum and finance and policy is the body of the work that I think most people would want to be interactive in. But you're more than welcome to come to any of them. Okay. Board reports. Are there any?
I just want to say how happy I am with the parents that came out to speak on the budget, regardless of how the comment that was made at the end. It was appreciated, and I would tell you to keep doing it.
Yes.
Every meeting, every time you can go out, speak, reach out to your alderman, do what you need to do. So I appreciated it. I thought it was great. Those students that came out,
amazing.
Amazing.
Yes.
I just also want to say thank you to the parents who come out to our meetings as well.
Yes.
Because it's time out of your day. And if you can't ever make it out to the meeting and there's something you want to share information out, I'm going to repeat it every time, you can email us, boe@csdnb.org. And actually, we've been getting a few emails to that now, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And usually one of us responds to it, and we forward it on. Even if we don't respond directly, we'll forward it on to the relevant people, the superintendent, some of the building principals as well. So it's just another way to reach out and let us know what's going on if you can't make a meeting.
And I just want to say, I, along with the superintendent and some other people, attended the adult ed graduation, which is really inspirational. If you want to feel good at the end of a night, next year, try to attend their graduation. Because those people have fought hard for the diploma, and they really appreciate it, and they are excited. It's a really beautiful graduation.
Can I also just say something?
Sure.
I'm a founding member and past president of Altrusa International Inc. of Greater Hartford, which has been around for 6 years. We founded it 6 years ago in this area, and we just had our second annual installation and scholarship banquet, and I just want to give a shout out. We give out 2 scholarships to seniors from any high school in the Greater Hartford area. They have to have a pretty good GPA, a lot of community service, because Altrusa focuses on empowering women and promoting literacy. And so of our 2 scholarships, one was a New Britain High School student. And if I can just make sure I have her name correctly.
Give me 1 second. Nelani Velez who's a current senior, and will be attending CCSU in the fall. So if you know her, shout out to Nelani for receiving one of our 2 scholarships.
Excellent.
Cool.
And I just want to say that Superintendent Nancy Sarah and myself, I translated for her while she interviewed on 96.9 to the Spanish community, and she also informed the community as to the transitions that are happening with the schools, and also gave them some tips for the summer and what to expect for the fall. She did very well.
Oh, thank you.
Have
to talk slower.
En la silla caliente.
And I just wanted to say, Saturday evening, I know, I see some people in the audience who, I know, but I had to just say, we had our Muslim population here in New Britain. The police actually closed off the bottom of Arch, and there was a huge celebration. That was the evening, and we could eat and eat. When I tell you the food, it was amazing. But I want to say hundreds of people were on Arch Street all together, and it was just a really nice representation of what our community is, right? And that it's just several people coming together and having lots of food. And it was a great evening. Our kids were so happy to see staff that were there. And they were so proud to show off the mosque, and they walked us through and up and around, and it was just a really nice evening. So I want to say that. And you're right, I am done.
That's all right. And then myself, I'd like to just put it out there that we are taking our show on the road, if that makes sense. We're going to be visiting some houses of faith and different community-based organizations in the next couple of months to really talk to the community about what's going on in the district and to be able to field some questions. So if you have any places where you'd recommend we stop, please let us know. We really want to get the information out, and we really want to get feedback from the community. Not everybody can show up here, so we are going to take it to them. So please, if you have any ideas of places that you would like us to stop, please email us at bobcsdnb.org.
It's a mouthful.
It is. It's a long
lot of letters.
Okay. Right. And the superintendent's budget request for 2018-19. Mr. Kane, you are up. And I am gonna sit over there because that's
I know, I was
above
just
my
going to
head
say,
and
because I have to
can't
be
do.
able to see.
So if you give us
This
1
was-
minute to move.
We can't, we don't have eyes in the back of our head.
I know, but I also would like to be able to see it and not put my head back.
Should I be the only one sitting here?
You can sit there. I'm taking it with me, but I want to be able to see it. And then we'll also I can move my legs.
Oh, need all my stuff. Okay, I'm not sitting here alone. Hold on. It's kind of peaceful.
Well, it's just a presentation, right? It's not we're not voting on it.
Technically, it's large.
So, but we're not voting on this, correct?
Well, there's there's action items.
Okay, yeah, I did see that, right.
You are on, sir.
You all ready? This evening, you really have 3 things in front of you. You have your budget book. I also have a PowerPoint presentation, which you see up there. I also give you a table of contents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the PowerPoint, but I'm going to actually stop and discuss the budget book. We'll go along. So if you look at the budget book, I'll point you out things. Now, if you turn to your transmittal letter, and that's really 2 pages in. Of course, there's a typo right in the first page, and I apologize for that. The requested budget in front of you today is 126, 129, 171, so that's where the typo is. is an increase of 429,171 or 0.34%. New Britain's 16-17 per pupil expenditures is 13,391. We are 167th out of 169 in the state of Connecticut. Below is just really just a summarization as to where the expenditures are. The salaries on the general fund had a decrease of 2.39%. Fringe and insurances had an increase of 3.4%. And we're going to talk about some of these changes in the transmittal letter and shortly thereafter. If you turn the page on transmittal letter, it's really just talking about all the changes that you see in page 1. These are all changes $100,000 more or less. Salaries decreased by $1,740,000 or 2.47%. Certified salaries had a decrease of $2.3 million. What did that make up? That made up a $1.3 million reduction, and that's because we have a lot of retirements. So those new teachers were brought in at a savings, so that's 1.3. Reduction of positions, $940,000. Reduction based on shift into grants, that's $500,000. We had the teacher settlement with the 0%. It was also a step, so let's talk back, I think we went through this before. So this fiscal year, if a teacher was making, let's say $50,000 on day 1, they had a step increase on January, and that teacher may went from 50 to 54, but their salary for this year was $52,000. Next year, that teacher's their base salary is $54,000, so that's why you see that the little delta difference. The administrative contract, next year is the last year. It's $95,000 or 1.98%, so if you're an administrator and you go up on your step, it's really a general wage increase. Many of our administrators are at the top step, but some do have steps. Non-certified salaries had an increase of $600,000, of which $470,000 is really unnegotiated salaries. We have all our contracts are coming up in next year, so I've actually budgeted a very conservative dollar amount out there, or percentage. I can't say it publicly because one reason I'll say it publicly because when the unions negotiate, they want to know what it is, and it's a very conservative number. So anytime the board wants to discuss an executive session, I can really disclose as how I came up with that number. We also, in the budget, we have 5.8 new library clerk positions. That's worth $177,000. And there was other changes for less than $40,000. Now, next thing you see is fringe and insurances. Fringe and insurances increased by $3.4 million, which is quite a bit, or 24%. But really, the largest thing is the health insurance. Health insurance increased by $3.1 million. We received an increase of just under 15% back in May. So when we were putting the budget together, we were expecting an increase in the single digits. So to my dismay, in May, we found out it was 15%. So that dollar amount really changed quite a bit. And that's, so you're gonna see these numbers, you're gonna say, well, what happened? We also had a reduction. We're assuming a reduction in the self-insurance fund. So let's go back to last year, in the 17-18 fiscal year. Working with Ms. Sarah as a new superintendent, she wanted to put together a very prudent budget to the board last January. And it was a very prudent budget. Over the years, when I first came here, we had an $8.1 million self-insurance fund deficit. That fund balance through good work of the board, because one thing too is when I came here, I had a harp that we had a problem here. I had a city of New Britain call me up, pretty much the first week about where's our $8.1 million. And over time, we really built it up. Some of it was luck, it's the claims. Recently, claims are getting worse. So last year, we made the determination we're gonna use at least $2 million of the self-insurance fund balance for the prior year. Last year, we went to the board approved the budget of $1.1 million, 0.85%. When we received our budget last year from the city of New Britain, we got 0. So we didn't get any piece of the pie. So at the last minute, because all these changes were made on our side, superintendent had a really, between myself and superintendent, we had discussions, and it was very tough, because how are you gonna make a $1.1 million reduction when you get a board in June, and you already have your budget planned out? So that would have been basically, at that point in time, we would probably have reduced, 12 teachers. I'm just picking on teachers right now, but it'd be 12 teachers, 15 teachers, whatever. So in talking with the superintendent, I said, look, let's just use the self-insurance fund. Hopefully we're gonna have a good year next year when it comes to claims. We're not having a good year this year, coming to claims. So our self-insurance fund balance it's taking a hit. We're still solvent. Next year's budget, we're budgeting our premium, but we're actually hitting the self-insurance fund again. So on Saturday, it was very nice, we received an increase. That increase may not happen, unfortunately. Right now, we're dedicating $900,000 from the self-insurance fund. Initially, it was gonna be 1.3, because we're going through this whole redesign. We did not expect to see a 15% increase from May 15th, which was kind of shock, and that's where we are today. So we are actually using the self-insurance fund next year, $900,000. And we're actually driving that self-insurance fund. Self-insurance fund, you should always maintain a fund balance of 2 months of claims, and you should have a 5% factor on top of that. Right now, my conservative projections, and hopefully my conservative projections are a little lower, hopefully going to be a little higher, but right now, my conservative projections, we're going to end up this fiscal year with approximately 2 months of claims, which is a nice number, but it's not sufficient. So really what I'm trying to say to the board tonight is, even though we're going to use the self-insurance fund, I'm not really sure in the following year we're going to have that luxury. You know, because you're gonna fall into a problem. You know, we're seeing claims this year running 14 or 15% over. It hurts. I mean, it happens. You know, a few years ago we were seeing claims running 85%, which was nice because we look good, I look good. And today it's just happening. So we're seeing that with the claims. So that's what you're seeing this budget here tonight. We also have a decrease of $1.3 million, and that's because we saw some additional money from grants. We're going to go farther into that because I think it's a huge misconception out there as to what grant incomes we're really receiving. So, but we're seeing a reduction of $1.3 million, which is being shifted to grants. We also saw our census this year, a slight change in our census. When I talk about census, last year when we did the budget, we had about 1,010 employees that are taking health insurance. Not that we have any less employees. This year we have 999. And maybe one of the reasons why is because sometimes younger people, when they got hired, maybe they're still with mom and dad for the first several years or their spouse or whatever. So we do have several teachers, I think it's more on the teacher level, that are opting out not for insurance because they're still 26 or under. Now, if you turn to the next page, you can see workers' compensation. We have an increase of $552. This year, we are actually paying for our medical claims. I don't think the city has yet to pay for their claims, but this fiscal year, we didn't budget for it, we are paying for it. Next year, we are budgeting for it. So this budget reflects projected claims for this fiscal year, so it's really projecting claims through April. I looked at April's claims for those 10 months and I trended forward for May and June, so I'm saying it looks like approximately $662,000. When we look at our workers' comp and our insurance, this workers' comp is really workers' comp and also insurance things. When we have fixes where we might be settling, that's what that budget is. I'm budgeting the 3-year average on the old stuff, and I'm seeing that we can decrease it by $110,000. So that's why you see an increase of $552, but $662 is really based on that new medical claims. Purchase professional services, we're seeing a decrease of $235, or just under 6%. The driver here is bus monitors. We're seeing a decrease of $181, or 31%. We do have new contracts. It's my understanding through people services, discussions with transportation. There's some discussion that we may have too many monitors out there. So there is talk, and Mr. Hollick provided me this number. And also, I think the dollar amount for monitors is slightly lower based on new contracts. Other decreases on purchase of services, we're seeing a decrease of $1,000,003. We have a decrease in transportation of $570,000, or 4.54. Now, some of you might say tonight, you said, geez, I thought the decrease was like $1.5 million. It really is, because if you think about it, when we did our January budget, we knew we had extra buses that we weren't expecting this year. We knew the bell times up at The correct high school up on Slater Row, I think it was 4 or 5 buses, the Smalley buses. Well, through routing efficiency, Mr. Hellick, along with our router, Mr. Valero, have actually brought the buses down, and they're projecting less buses. So last year we had more buses, or this year we have more buses on the road, projecting less buses. So that's where you see the $500,000 plus $900,000. That's really the change of $1.4, $1.5 million between January and today. We have a tuition increase, well, I should say tuition decrease of $847. It's another typo, or 6%. And this is really a reduction in outplaced students and associated costs. And this is really based on this year's actuals today. It's conservative because I know we worked with People's Service, one of Mrs. Grant's secretaries upstairs that oversees it. She gave me a number that was out there about standing that she was still looking at, and I basically added a couple $100,000 on top of that. So, you know, just to make sure that it doesn't fall in. Grant funds. You see in the transmittal, there's grant funds out there, and you know, one thing that came out recently that we received all this extra money from Alliance or ECS. The talk was out there, $2.2 million. Now let me bring it back to about the Alliance. This year ECS was decreased during this fiscal year, $250,000. It was to our surprise. We just we found out later on that the $250 really did not hit the Alliance fund; it hit the city of New Britain. So this year, when we budgeted $12,265,000 in Alliance, we've actually received $12,265,000. So when that increase in Alliance, they restored the $250 that went back to the city of New Britain, and the additional increase is the $1.9 flows to the Board of Education. So we're really seeing an increase in Alliance of about $1.9 million. We saw a decrease in Title I from $5.9 million to $5.6, $300,000 decrease. We also saw a huge decrease in priority school district, which is kind of mirrored with the Alliance, of $300,000 or 16%. So when we talk about the grant funds, we're really seeing a change of $1.2 million. So, you know, it may seem like a lot, but it's not even really cost taking care of our contract. And we're going to see some other pages where we really see what that number really means. Okay, if you turn, let's see. Now, turn to page 1 and 2 of your budget book. This is just really a quick and dirty. It's giving you our general fund appropriation of 126, 129, 171. If you turn that page, it really provides a little more analysis on it. It shows you pretty much a 3-year history, and 2018-19 is the 4th year. So you're seeing the actuals from 2015-16, you know, 123.2. We saw an increase in 16-17 of $2.5 million, or 2.03. You saw the 17-18 saying 0. You saw right now for 18-19 an increase of 429,171. Oh, turn to page 2.
With the actual
Page 2 of the budget book.
numbered pages.
Yeah, I'm going through the budget book just to give you some highlights so you know your.
No, you are not numbered.
Yeah, that's right. No, you're right. You're back. That one. Page 2. This is back one. Right there.
So if you look at page 2, this really gives you really the breakdown of funding. So if you went back 15-16, you know, 15-16, you see the city of New Britain's contribution was approximately $45.5 million. We saw an increase of $2.5 million. The city's increase really changed by additional dollars to 4.6. And the reason for that is the state of Connecticut stopped reimbursing the city for transportation of school children. So that got reduced. Excess cost changes all the time, so that's just the actuals back then, but that does change. Just let me just remind you, excess cost should be flowing to the Board of Education. It does not flow to the Board of Education. We'll talk more about that, not tonight, but we can talk about that another time. Excess cost by state statute, is supposed to flow to the Board of Education. It's supposed to be a contract expenditure. The city of New Britain, the city is supposed to receive the money and then send it over to the education side. It should be a contract expenditure. So, and what I'm really trying to tell you nicely, if you have a budget of $126 million, your excess cost, $3 or $4 million, is supposed to go in as a contract expenditure, and you're supposed to be able to expend it. Right. We're one of the few communities out there that does not receive it. Your next section is FTE breakdown. You know, on page 4, you're going to see it by union affiliation. It's going to show you combined. It's going to show you the general fund, which we call our local budget, and it's going to show you the grant funds. You can see we have FTEs of 1315. We're seeing our general fund supports 1,001, and our grant fund support 313. So even though the grant fund price supports 23% of the employees, payroll price supports 26-27%. You know, one thing with our grants really, 94% of our grant money really supports personnel. So when you look at our grants may total somewhere about $32 million. I think it's $32 million. Probably $30.2 million of that is, you know, personnel. So that's where it's 90 out of a dollar, 94 cents on a dollar is personnel driven. What you're seeing in page 5, 6, and 7 is just the same thing you're seeing there. It's just giving you by position as to what this year's budget is, what's combined, what's the general fund, what's the grant funds. If you go through on page 2, you're gonna see some of the newer positions out there we have. You're gonna see the STEAM teachers, CTIT, manufacturing, culinary. Those are positions you want to see before. So it's really more of a repurposing of positions. We have some reduction positions, but we also repurpose positions. You know, one thing, page 8 and 9, you know, this is something that was asked a few years ago, just because Alliance is our biggest grant out there. Somebody said, well, let's see the grant funds and let's see how much Alliance supports in the grant funds. So 8 and 9 is really just taking your grants and saying, you have 313 positions in your grants. How many positions are being supported by Alliance? Approximately 135. How many other grants? 180, let's say. Section 3, you don't have to really go through it, 10 and 4. It's really just a definition of funds. Every fund we have out there, the local fund and all the special revenue funds and state and federal grant funds, it gives you really a definition of what those funds are and gives you grant numbers too. Section 4, which is page 15 to 22, is the object codes. It's giving you all the object codes, non-personnel object codes, and it really just gives you a definition of what those accounts really stand for. Section 5, and this is kind of an important section, is the object code budget. Pages 24 through 35. So let's look at 24 for an example. Up on top, you're going to see the grand total, combined general fund and grant funds. Combined total is $158.7 million, of which $32.6 million is grant funds, and general fund is $126.1 million. You're going to see all down below all the object codes. You're going to see what's being budgeted in the grant fund. You're going to see what's being budgeted in the general fund. If you go to the right-hand side, you can see all the locations out there. You're going to see what Chamberlain has. You're going to see what Gaffney has, Holmes, and you know it goes on and on. So you're really going to see 12 pages. It's really 4 sections of all the departments and schools going across. Now, if you go to pages 36 through 47, this gives you everything on our grant funds. It goes by each grant, you know, so even the small grants. So let's go to Title I, for example. You can see that on page 36. It's going to say in Title I, you have administrators. It's giving you salaries of 152. It's showing you how many classroom teachers you have, 2.1. I have someplace else, if you need to have the FTEs, I can supply that to you, so you can see all that, where each grant, how many people it supports, and but these are just dollar amounts. And this is 12 pages too, so it goes through every grant. If you really turn the page, you want to go to the large grant, which is the Alliance grant. That's 2341, and that grant will be on page 42 through 44. You can see on the Alliance grant, the personnel cost on the Alliance grant on page 43 is approximately $13.9 million. If you turn the page on page 44, you can see the Alliance grant is approximately $14.2 million. So this is a very good example to show you that our grants really support personnel. There is some extra money from service and other things, but it's really personnel driven. Yes?
On page 43 where it says ECS 2% set aside.
Yes.
That would be $1.5 million set aside to support the support personnel if we had it, correct?
And you do have it, yeah. So if you think about it, every year in May, I try to remember to go in front of the board to have you approve the 2% set aside. 2% set aside was something they, probably 10 years ago, where the state recognized the poorest school districts. And they gave those poor school districts the opportunity to apply for 2% of the ECS money that was given to the city or town that they lived in. If you look back in Britain, here's a good example. If you turn to page 2, and I'll just tell you what it is. If you turn to page 2, you'll see that the city of New Britain receives at the bottom in ECS approximately $72,450,710. Back about 10 years ago, that $72,450,710 included the $1,478,000. So add those two numbers together, that would be $74 million. And the 2% set aside back then said, hey, to the poor communities, you can receive 2% of that money. Now, the Alliance has been kicking in since then. That's over and above that. So when you always do the 2%, it's based on that original number, let's say 10 years ago. So all the poorer communities out there, the Durgais, and there may be some above that, but I believe it's really the Durgais, they have the opportunities to apply for the 2% set aside to the state of Connecticut. You have to notify your city, which we do every year religiously, and the board approves it. So I believe we're in the 9th, I think next year's the 9th year. Now, if you look at pages 48 to 51, this is just a little more just by department. It's showing you the 2018-19 budget. It's showing you, once again, a different way to cut it. It's really just summarizing what you see on pages 24 through 35, where you see all the detail going across. It's summarizing, it's saying the grand total is $158.7 million. That's the third line item down. Then if you go down a few more lines, you're going to see the local or general fund increase or budget is $126.1 million. And then we, several years ago, was asked to split the grants between Alliance and all the grants, and that's just the split between Alliance and the other grants. If you add them up, you equal $32 million. And it just goes across and gives you departmental summaries. It's 4 pages worth. Now, pages 52 to 55, this is something a little different. I try to give you some analysis every year on how it stacks up between, it could be staffing, it could be numbers, and I thought it was really important, because I'm hearing a lot about all this additional money that we're receiving, and I think this really gives you a great snapshot as to how we're doing with very low increases. We have contractual increases, and if you go way across to your far right, you're going to see a combined general and grant funds, and you're seeing an increase of 1.05%, or $1.6 million. And that includes the $400,000 that was granted on Saturday. And if you go down, you're going to see the combined totals all the ways down for everything. So when you're looking at the salaries and you're seeing that the general fund had a decrease in salaries of $1.7 million, or we're seeing the grant funds picked up $900,000. So we're actually seeing an overall decrease in salaries. but because of the additional alliance money, we were able to move people over, but also based on what happened in health insurance, I had to move people out. Because what was happening is, where I had to move people from the grants out to the local because I couldn't afford them the grants, because once the health insurance went up quite a bit, there were people that we couldn't afford, people that were sitting places. So it was more of a, every year we do this, but it's a scramble at the end when you start looking at it and you do the budget and then you start filling them in. So I'm actually taking people and removing them. This year's a little different because with the redesign, we had many people in the local, so if Kevin Kane was a classroom teacher and he moved to something else, he probably followed his funding. But because we had a number of retirements, initially they were all placed in the local budget, just quick and dirty. So once that happened, then I had to go through the budget and start moving people back out. So when I looked at the personnel, I knew the personnel, but I had to move them back out. So I was, it's piecemeal. We do this every year. So this is 50 through 55. It gives you pretty much the analysis as to, or the breakdown between general fund, grant funds, and combined. Okay, section 7 is Roosevelt. They always ask the Roosevelt campus as to how Roosevelt is supported. That used to be the old middle school. Now it supports the Early Learning Center. It supports HALS. And it supports the Career Satellite Academy. So you see in your first page on 57, just the personnel. And it's really not between general fund and grants, it's just basically the personnel, just to show you what it looks like at that campus. So you're actually seeing 71 positions sitting at that campus. You're seeing some positions like nurses, a nurse that's supporting the Career Academy, but he or she really supports the campus, and that's why it's footnoted like that. If you turn the page, you'll see the non-personnel costs related to it and just the total cost for that campus. Section 8 through 26, I can go through that. That's really just all your schools and special programs. I'm not, we can look at them. You're gonna see it later. For instance, if you look at the first one, Chamberlain, you're gonna see a difference. If you look at your January budget, you probably, if you look farther down, you never saw STEAM teachers. Now you see STEAM teachers in these budgets. So there's changes. I'm not doing too well with this. Our personnel budget. So, a personnel budget, we have two budgets out there. We have a personnel budget, we have a non-personnel budget. Personnel budget, we think about how do we budget people's salaries. One thing, when I came here, I found out by year that sometimes we budget someone's salary. Well, we didn't budget their annuities, we didn't budget their longevity, and, we didn't always budget people correctly. And then, when I looked at the dollar amount, I said, well, where does this come from? Somebody said it comes from the salary. And it's like, well, I only budgeted $100 and now I'm spending $105. So what we end up doing, we actually, when we do our budget, we take those employees, we really gather all their pay. So if you get your salary out there, so when you look at a budget, you might see somebody's salary of, some dollar amount. And that salary could be the base salary. So let's say it's $100,000. If a person doesn't take insurance, many people get a $1,000 waiver, so that $1,000 gets added in here. Many of our employees in the unions have longevity payments when they're here a certain number of years. That longevity payment may start at $500 and may go up to like $1,500, so that's part of this. If you're an administrator or a person with a contract, you may have a 2% annuity. So that 2% annuity, if you're making $100,000, that $2,000 has to be part of the budget. And a few employees with contracts have car allowances. So nothing is hidden from the public. So when you look at that number, and I came up with some faults in my early years here when I did this. I had a couple of people say, whoa, why is my number so high? It's like, well, that's just life. We have to budget for it because it's transparent. This is just an example of budget. We just looked at Chamberlain quickly. This is the Vance budget. Unfortunately, I can't see it, it's a little small, you probably have the hard copy there, it's probably easy to see. But it's just an example how we do the budgets. We do the budgets, we give you the combined budget, the FTEs, we show you the general fund budget. If you look on the right-hand side for classroom teachers, you're gonna see we have so many teachers under the general fund. The rest of them, which I can't see, I probably see all of this thing.
Alliance, priority.
Yeah, we have 21 teachers, 13 in general fund, 8 others that are in grants. And really just list them in grants. So you're seeing that there's, one person that might be Title I, we have 1 in ECS, we have, 4 in Alliance. So it's really just a breakdown. This is an example of the non-personnel budget. This is Jefferson School. Mostly for the schools, it's postage, office supplies, instruction supplies. The next is really the basis for all schools. It tells you for ES and NS is the elementary and middle schools and how we budget. Postage, $1.10. Special education students, we budget $9.90 in top. Receiving instructional supplies. And of course, this thing looked like it shifted a little. So the base is $10. So that's another way that looks. Base is $10, art is $5, music is $3, and PE is $1.50 per student. Office supplies is $11. We have special programs like Transition, Brookside, and Klein. Their base for instructional supplies is $3,000, and office supplies is $3,000. Bryn High School, for postage is $15,000 total. Their base is $140,000. Art is $750 per student, $450 for music, $225 for PE. Office supplies is the same $11. And CSA pretty much follows in Bryn High School, but instead of their base, instead of being $10, it's $57.75 for high school students. Section 27 to 33 and 35 to 36 are the departmental budgets. Those include the executive office, which is the Board of Education and superintendent. Those are executive. It includes the finance, which is my department of finance and transportation. And if you follow it down, then you'll see MIS, I think is 921, and Central Reg, which is under MIS, is 922. Then you have facilities, which follows is 931. And then you have talent, which is formerly known as HR, is 941. So it goes on and on. District-wide, there's several budgets in district-wide. District-wide extra earnings, district-wide insurance, and non-personnel. So when we look at district-wide, this is really all the insurances, and it shows all the grants that may be going district-wide. Many of our grants are district-wide. Some actually are toward a special department. So pupil services, if you looked at their budget, you will see IDA 611, you'll see IDA 619, you'll see third-party billing, which is a special revenue fund out there. So you'll see any grants associated with the pupil service budget over on the right-hand side. Stipends. If you turn to your budget page 165 to 168 is stipends. And there's a slew of stipends out there, and not to say they're not prudent. I know last year superintendent went through these to make sure. So the budget this year, things could change. So it's a nice way of saying that, there has to be proof that a program is needed, an after-school club is needed. So these are things that we've always sort of looked at. But this is really what we ended up with this year to bring forward next year. But they have changed. We did have stipends this year that were being supported, lead teachers that were being supported through the, I think the 10003 A grants, which was just a one-year deal. Those are going away. Those lead teachers, unfortunately, have to go away. I mean, we don't have the funds in our local budget to provide an additional $100,000. Unfortunately, when you use your grant funds for one-time things, many times you cannot bring them back to your local budget. So that's one of those things that happen. I think it was worthwhile giving it a shot to see what happened, but sometimes you have to make a decision. So here's the stipends. There's 4 pages of them. You'll see at the bottom the stipends, total stipends are $605,000 in the local budget, your general fund budget. It really shows you by the location, the general fund. $44,000 is elementary schools, and then the middle schools, it shows you academics of 29, it shows you clubs of, let's say, 50, and it shows you the athletics of 57. So we have intramural programs at the middle schools, which is something we did a couple years ago, we implemented that. It's running very well. At the high school, we have the academic ones, which is $75,000. We have clubs of, let's say, $98,000. Athletics is $245,000. And then we also have grant funds. Mrs. Grant actually oversees the IDA, where we have some for teachers. There's 3 preschool lead teacher grants, lead teacher stipends out there, and there's a few other ones out there too. What you're seeing next on page 169 and 170, so it's really nothing here. Hopefully you can follow this. If anybody has any questions on this today, but also tomorrow, on anything out there, please. I'm here because I want to make this easy for everybody. I mean, it should be easy. I'm doing it, so it should be simple and stupid. I know people like to hear that, but it has to be. So I'm not trying to make anything up. But this is our census data. So if you look at it, you see administrators, 51. People that follow the administrator's contract. So in my case, I follow the administrator's contract. When it comes to health insurance, I pay the same. If it's 19, 20% or whatever it is, I pay the same percentage that they pay. You'll see for the administrators that we have 40 people that follow the administrative contract. There's more than 40 people out there, so there's a number of people. There might be at least 10 people that don't take health insurance. Maybe their spouse has health insurance that's cheaper for them or whatever. So we have people that don't take health insurance. We have 40 people out there. It does the calculations right across. For example, our health insurance for a single person is $10,201. The vision is $45. Dental is $462. We also give a contribution for the HSA of $1,000 for a single person, $2,000 for a couple, and $2,000 for family. So that's captured in here too. I believe the city followed us in this HSA. I'm sure it's pretty similar. So if it does the calculation right across, if you go all the ways down to the bottom on page 170, it gives you the totals. It shows we have 393 single people. The total cost is $4.4 million. It has 184 couples. Total cost is $4.3 million. We have 422 families. Total cost is 12.6. The total cost for everything is $21.4 million, of which the employee's portion is, let's say, $3.2 million. So the health insurance cost between local and grant should be $18.3 million, $18.2 million. You'll see an adjustment down below, $897,000. I reduced our health insurance contribution by $897,000. So in actuality, I'm hedging. I'm hoping that next year's claims fall 4% lower than what's projected. So if they don't, and they fall the same, our self-insurance cost will have a hit of $900,000. This year we used 3.2. Unfortunately, this year when we looked at 3.2, our claims ran higher than 3.2. So this year I'm seeing probably a reduction $5 million in change. So that $10 million, we're going to be at $4 million. So what I'm saying to the board tonight is, I think we're doing pretty good, but this is something that we use to get out of a hit last year when we were, we conservatively looked for a minimum increase. We got none. Claims were bad last year. Claims aren't doing too well this year either. Next year, really our increase over the last 2 years is about 30%, 15% last year. We saw an increase of approximately 15%. Yeah, I think it was over 15%. This year is 14.9. So if you think about it, if it cost you $1 2 years ago, today that dollar is $1.30. I mean, claims are running away. I don't have an answer for it.
Mr. King?
Yes.
So if we are at or above your projection next year, we really can't afford to have a healthy balance in our self-insurance fund for the 2 months we should fund, plus the what is it, 2.5 over, right?
Yeah, right now I'm projecting, so right now I'm projecting at the end of this fiscal year, if we use $900,000, I'm projecting in my transmittal letter will be somewhere about 16.7%.
But what I'm saying is not this coming school year, but when it comes to budget time next year.
Yeah.
So for the 2019-2020 school year, which, I mean, once this budget is adopted, you start looking at the next one. It's not like it stops. So if we were to meet your projection or surpass your projection for this coming school year, we will not really be able to afford hitting that. Borrowing.
Right now, if you're asking, do I think we can hit it following year? No, I really don't, unless for some reason we have a swap out in claims. I'm not really expecting that. You're correct.
Right.
So, I mean, I think it worked well for us. We need to keep a positive balance out there. I've been, I've been a municipal finance director before coming to Britain for over 20 years. I've seen a self-insurance fund, which we had a much smaller community. We had a fund balance of $2.2 million. And I saw a year we ended up with $6,000 in our fund balance. And the board members were not too happy. And of course, they said to myself, I was a finance director and business parent, they said, what happened? It happened, but I said, I'm actually happy we're at least positive. I think it was 6,247. I always remember that number in my head. So, hopefully when I can get to that point, we were at 8.1 in the hole. So, so I think, we can't expect it. We used it. I think it worked well. It kept staffing. I know last year when we were working on the budget, we made a commitment to, go with the budget, to use $2 million, and that $2 million ended up being $3.1 million. This year, I was hoping to bring it down to 0, but, it's not gonna happen. Okay, your next section is per pupil expenditures. And then just to give you really quickly, you turn to the back of your budget book, and you're going to see this part of this presentation anyways, and we'll go through that really quickly. So last page 181 to 192. You're going to see per pupil expenditure comparison over the last 4 years, 16, 17, 15, 16, 14, 15, and 13, 14. This is really your guide. This is the 7 lowest communities in the state of Connecticut, and we're one of them. As you can see there, you see Hartford, and it's really showing you in rank order per pupil expenditure. And Hartford, usually is number 1 at $19,000, and we've always been in our DIRG, at least for the last 4 years. Well, for a long time, we've been last in our DIRG for a long time. We're at $13,391. We're 167th. We were 161 back in 13-14. 14-15, we're 162. 15-16, 167, and we're 167, and we're getting pretty close to 168, I'll be honest with you. I think we're about within $68 of the community that's above us, or below us, but the community above us is somewhere close to off like $500, $600 away. So there's a big gap between 167 and 166. There's not much of a gap between 167 and 168. So if we were going to receive the funding as the other communities, the other DIRG guys, this is a DIRG average. So when we look at a DIRG average, we're actually adding our number into it. So it's, at $13,000 is added in. So the DIRG average for all communities is $16,402 for 16, 17. If we were fortunate to get that would equal about $30 million. The state average is $16.5 thousand, and that would equal 31.7. If you turn the page, and I think this is the beauty, back in 1999, 2000, and 2001, and 2002, we were 67 per pupil, 61, 47, 60. I'm hearing a lot of times how fat education is in Britain. And maybe one time we were fat. But right now, I think we look pretty skinny now. 16, 17, we're 167. So we went from 67, even a low of 47, to 167. So if this is golf, we're not doing too good. But if this is bowling, we're doing pretty good.
I think we're wearing a waist trimmer right now.
Now, if you turn to page 184, the next 8 pages really just gives you a 16, 17 per pupil expenditures for all communities. I sorted this by rank order, so it's not really by our town code. So it really, our code is 89, so if you turn to page 191, in the far back, there we are. New Britain, we're 167. Down below, you see the state average. This comes from the state of Connecticut. So this isn't myself taking anybody's numbers and whatever. It's right off the state website. I can send you guys the links if you want to ever see that. You can go back and get any report out there. If you turn that page, you'll see all the DERGs. It doesn't really, I can get you names of the DERGs. You go way to the bottom, you see I, we're DERG I. It says N equals 7, there's 7 communities in the DERG. And it gives you the average for 16-17, which is 16,402. Budget timeline. December 18th, 2017, board received superintendent's budget book. January 8th, the budget was presented to the board and the board adopted. January 11th, BOE sent forward a requested budget to the city. February 22nd, BOE present budget to City Board of Finance. From February to early June, went through a whole school redesign. Superintendent, cabinet, school administrators, this is everything you're seeing tonight, so it was a long process. March 22nd, 2018, BOE presents to Common Council. The superintendent was invited and took me along. Not the whole council was present that evening, I think about eight council members, so it wasn't really a large number, but we presented a presentation to the board that evening. June 9th, Common Council adopts a budget. June 11th, that's tonight, BO receives and presented superintendent's requested budget. I do apologize. Really, the budget book was, hopefully was going to be to you on Friday, but I couldn't figure out how to do it Friday when I know until Saturday. So that's the reason why usually you get the budget book by Friday or Thursday, so you can look at it and you can count me, take my phone off. So June 18th, or this evening if you wish, we always schedule to adopt the budget. 2018-19 budget, it's a redesigned budget, model, enrichment for all students, per pupil expenditure, so there's some more analysis. You've seen some of this stuff here, we'll go through it really quickly, but it's part of the budget book. Budget analysis, I really want everybody to see this. We're making a lot of changes when it comes to personnel, with the redesign. You're not seeing all the changes yet, but also internal making changes. How we track employees and how employees move to the town office. Previously many employees moved just based on principle sometimes, and that's not knocking them. They moved employees, and sometimes we didn't know that a reading teacher was a classroom teacher, or we didn't know that possibly no additional classroom was opened up by whatever. So right now everything has to go through talent. The budget you see in front of you tonight, elementary school staffing, core, and STEAM. You're seeing pre-K. We're seeing 13. There's really 23 pre-K teachers out there, and I worked with Donna Clark, who reports to Ms. Grant over there. And there's 23, and the certifications have changed over time. And so I was a learning experience for myself, and Donna said to me, she said, no, these should be preschool teachers, they shouldn't be special ed teachers. And the certifications are 112, I think 113 is an early elementary, some goes up to a few extra grades, and she goes into pre-K. They should be preschool, and then we have special ed teachers in preschool, and I still call them special ed teachers. So there's 23. So that number has kind of swapped out a little. Before we had, I think we had like 10 pre-K teachers, but we probably had 13 special ed pre-K teachers. So it's just really, it's an education. And when you go farther along, you start saying, okay, I can make those changes. Kindergarten, next year's budget, I want to give you guys an understanding. So when you look at your budget book and you look at classrooms, you go, well, I see 24 classroom teachers, but where are they? Here they are in the elementary level. You see kindergarten, you see Chamberlain, you see 4, grade 1, 3, grade 2, 3, all the way down.
So the initials at top of the schools.
Right,
Yes.
so tell me
Yeah.
that again, explain that again?
Yes.
But I know that that's the schools,
Yes.
Chamberlain, Gaffney.
Yeah, so for new members and so forth, we did the accounting system. I couldn't spell out the school, so I had to make it simple and stupid. So I used Chamberlain for C, and ES is elementary school. It took a long time. We worked on that for weeks. Seriously.
Probably did.
And then the location is, I don't know, it's about alphabetical order, but yeah, it really is by alphabetical order, isn't it? Location is, is three numbers, 003, 005. And those are actual locations, even for the state. And that goes across. What you're seeing for Smalley is SAES, that's 0112. And you're saying, geez, where's the kindergarten? Well, the kindergartens are early learning centers. So when you look at the early learning center, ELC, which is the Roosevelt campus, you'll see 6 kindergarten teachers. So when Smalley gets renovated and built, you probably can see those 6 teachers at Smalley.
So,
Oops, okay.
question quickly, I sort of know the answer to this question, but when a school has 4 kindergarten teachers
Yes.
and 3 first grade teachers, what does that do for class size when they roll up?
Yeah.
And where do we get the money to pay those negative?
Well, one of the things when we looked at this year, you have to remember too, when we looked at this year, they actually, Mr. Prokop was here. So, we may have issues, but when they were looking at the following year, so they were taking those classrooms. So if you had, let's say you had a high kindergarten population, let's say it was 4.
Yep.
Those 4 kindergartens moved up to first grade. But previously, we used to have 3. So so there's some hedging. So that's what you're seeing. You're actually seeing the numbers moving forward, and then a new number being placed for kindergarten. And I know,
Can I just say one
Yes.
thing too? And the building principals have as long as it goes through talent.
Fluidity too.
Right, and so we looked today, we were concerned with 5th grade numbers at Chamberlain, let's just say, it was at 27 already. But we looked at their first grade numbers, and there's 63 students with 4 teachers, right? And so they can not necessarily shift the first to the 5th, but we're talking about class sizes of 16 at the first grade, which is the best you could ever have. However, that's not in keeping with the average in the city. So there is there's the fluidity for the admin to make the choice to say, got to bump people up because we want to reduce. And we did that last year, and it's not the best, but we know that we are faced with not being able to hire additional teachers. And so you've got to look at where do you have pockets of low. And principals are making the decisions now, I want to keep my class size at 16 at first grade and keep the 26 or 27 at 5th. They may have to shift that if more kids move in. It's a transient population. So, but we base everything off the numbers going up. And we keep trying to keep, K1, 2 at 22-ish, and then our 3, 4, 5, 26 and 27. We all want 16 and 18 in every class. We want that.
Yeah, not our reality.
So what's that?
We just don't ever get it.
Well, if we have 31 million more, we would.
Yeah.
Okay, just saying.
yeah, we really, we went through that process this year. I think y'all recall where I think up to 4 teachers. We had to move things around. And it gets a little ugly. There's no doubt about it. Unfortunately, when you receive no money, it's you really don't have much choice. Yes, Andy.
So understanding those fractions mean the teachers are divided.
How do you do .83?
8.3. Esteemed teachers, why do you have .83?
Well, there's a teacher that was district-wide. There's one lady at district-wide. I can't remember who she was, Nancy.
She's going to deal right now.
She was half district-wide, and she was going to go half. She was going to quarter one place, quarter someplace else. That's one.
Right.
The .33 is at North End is a PE teacher, and the PE teacher at North End. If you look at North End budget, you'll see there's a .67, I believe, PE teacher. You're going to see .33 because North End. So she was kept. I think it's a she, but it could be. That PE teacher was kept alone for enrichment. So that's what you're seeing. So it's actually just giving them a little more.
Yeah, it's not PE. It's an art teacher.
I hear you say that.
Now, the next slide is the middle school, high school staff and core and STEAM. you know, there's more teachers at the high school. I couldn't really capture them. You have technology teachers, you have the science teachers, F&C teachers, you know. So I just want to give you the main ones out there. So if you have DeLoretto, DMS, DeLoretto, SMS is Slade, DMS is Pulaski, HALS, NBHS, and CSA. So what you're seeing at DeLoretto, you're seeing a grade 6 teacher. When we looked at DeLoretto, we have, if you go down below on DeLoretto, you're going to see 2 English teachers, you're going to see 2 social studies teachers, you're going to see 2 science teachers. DeLoretto has 9 teachers, 6, 7, and 8. 8 of those teachers are going to specialize. One is going to be someone who does more than one thing. So that's why that teacher is captured just as a grade 6 teacher. I'm not sure what I think it's a she, what she's going to be doing. So right now, she's being classified as a grade 6 teacher, and we'll be supporting the system over there. Slade and Pulaski, what you're seeing there, you're seeing 7 English, 7 social studies, 7 math, and 7 science. So those schools are equal. And what you're seeing at those schools, you're seeing teams. You're seeing, for the most part, you're seeing 2 each in the 8th grade level, 2 each on the 7th grade level, 2 each on the 6th grade level, and you're seeing the extra teachers are being supporting either 6, 7, or 7A. So and that's still being worked out through the schedule. So that's why you're seeing middle schools. You used to see a teacher was doing both English and social studies. The teacher was actually doing math and science. Now those teachers are actually going to specialize in 1 core area versus 2. So it's really, it's in some ways it's going to be hopefully more efficient that he or she is now going to just be supporting 1 area versus 2 areas. You see HALS as, 1 apiece going down. You see New Britain High School as 19, 17, 19, 21.5. You're seeing the STEAM teachers down below. You have 4 at Slade and Pulaski, you have 1 at HALS, and you have 2 at NBHS. You have advisory teachers of 2 each at Slade and Pulaski and 3 at New Britain High School. You have CTIT teachers. These are new ones. These are, really the extra. You're seeing 2, 2, and 4 at New Britain High School, and you're seeing manufacturing at Slade and Pulaski. Those used to be the technology teachers, 2 and 2. And you're seeing something new. You're seeing a culinary program for both Slade and Pulaski. And it's my understanding that and I might be wrong on that the culinary teacher from Slade will actually be going to Pulaski to provide additional enrichment on some off days, and vice versa.
Teams, right?
Yes.
And so the week that Pulaski has NBU, they'll be partnering with DELO. So one of the bigs is going to partner with the small. So on the week that Pulaski's got NBU, both culinary teachers will be servicing students at Pulaski's. Is it culinary or home ec? It's culinary. Just culinary. It's culinary. And then on the flip week, the 2 culinary teachers will travel to Slade.
Question, the advisory teachers, how many sections of advisory are they teaching?
So is Laura still sitting there?
No, I'm sitting here now.
Oh. You jumped. Can you explain that? Because I told Kevin that was a wrong name.
Because I'm like, advisory doesn't take that long.
Oh, that's okay. Kevin put the name advisory up there, and I told him today that is the wrong name, but we couldn't change it. So the teachers and the ELA teachers.
Right. So they're largely English language arts teachers who are teaching, and we have had an advisory curriculum for the last several years, and our advisory curriculum encompasses a lot of issues. Our 4th person who would be teaching these topics is a guidance counselor from the high school. So we're looking at that curriculum from the perspective of literacy, right? So looking at things like bullying and pressure and
drugs,
right. I mean, you can enumerate them as well as I can, and it's late, so I won't go on. But looking at those topics through their strength, because they're coming from an ELA perspective, and so doing some role playing, doing some reading and responding to literature where those topics are discussed is how those teachers are going to come at that curriculum. Or those topics, I should say. And I'm meeting with them this week, and they're actually excited about this curriculum. So that's really great to hear. So we've described them as ELA 6, 7, 8 teachers because they will be teaching within their certification. They will be teaching English language arts and literacy, but they'll be teaching it through kind of a different lens that our students need.
So they're ELA teachers, and there's 7 of them. It says advisory, it says grade total of 7, 2 here, 2 there, 3 advisory. Am I reading that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I'm not speaking about the ones at the high school. The ones at the high school will be within their advisory curriculum.
Right, so my question was not about the curriculum, my question was about who they were and if they were teaching, whatever classes they were teaching, was it all day? So were they teaching, how many sections of advisory are they teaching? Are they teaching the full day of advisory, or are they teaching some English and some advisory? That was the question.
No,
the breakdown.
the other reason why they're going to be teaching on plus day. They'll be teaching the advisory classes on plus day.
Okay.
But again, with that literacy strength, they'll be able to push into classes on the non-plus weeks at their schools. And that's an area that we're going to need with students, at varying degrees of literacy.
So their literacy intervention, other days? Literacy intervention and social emotional intervention on the other days?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. I just want, because advisory sounds like most advisories are not that long, and so unless you're teaching rotating day of advisory, that title makes it sound
they'll
like.
have 5 sections of advisory on a plus day, and then a different 5 the next plus day, and a different 5 the next plus day. So they'll have several sections, but they'll be largely teaching them the same content.
Got it.
And then the following year, different.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, now we're back to the end. General fund budget, 126, 129, 171, that's the requested budget, which is the budget that's adopted by the city of New Britain. They adopted budget for 17-18, 125.7. The change is 429, 171, or 0.34%. This just gives you really a 4-year history, really a 5-year history. When you look at history, I'm looking at a base year, so you really don't count the base year here, and this projection is 14-15. Shows you the budget back in 14-15 was 123.2, 15-16, 123.2, 16-17, 125.7, 17-18, 125.7, 18-19, 126, 129, 171. That was really adopted by the Common Council. You've seen a budget increase of 0, 2.5, 0, 429. I'm trying to give you the annual increase is 0%. And for 15-16, 16-17, 2.03%, 17-18 is 0%, and 18-19 is 0.34%. Now, if you really compound that increase over those 4 years, starting with the base year through 18-19, that's an annual increase of 0.59%, so it's less than 1%. We already went over this, but this is just really more gives you the good highlights. And so, as the per pupil expenditures for the last 4 years, this is in your budget book, but it's also part of this presentation. And once again, it shows you 16-17, 15-16, 14-15, 13-14, and it shows you where we're both. And you can see out of the 7 communities, we're the 7th community, and we're ranked with 167th and climbing. It shows you the Durg average. It shows if we were hitting the Durg average, what would our additional funding or shortfall be? $30.1 million. So it was 28.6, so it's going up and down, but it's $30 million, and it gives you the state average too. If anything, we're falling way behind. The Durg looks like it's kind of holding. But if you really think about it, if you look at a dollar out there and the Durg average, we get 80 cents on a dollar. So if the Durg is $1, the Durg gets 80 cents. You just do the math, it comes out that way. Here's the historic rank, and this comes right from the state of Connecticut. It only goes back to year 2000, and I'm sure it goes back farther, but that's all that's on the website. And 2000 we're 67, 61, 47, 60, 68, 78, 96, 114, 100. 2009, 120, 128, 126, In 11, 12, we were at 164. Then we went to 166, 161, 162, and these last 2 years were 167.
Do you know why there's such a drop? Did we lose state funding? Did we lose city funding? Like,
What do you mean, the drop between 126 and 164? Or are you talking overall?
67 to 167.
Well, I think it's lack of funding. You know, I don't think it's really
State?
I think it has to do with the community. I mean, you know, I've been a finance director and I've seen a lot of communities. So let's take an example. I was reading something on Bridgeport. Bridgeport has a lot of problems. And people were complaining that they're only going to get $2 million from the city. And Bridgeport's a lot larger than us.
$2 million?
Yeah. And I've heard the same thing in Danbury. So, you know, you'll see a lot of communities, there is additional funding. It might not be your contractual, but there is an increase. That's just the way life is. You will see that. What you see in Britain is unusual. I'm not going to lie, it's very unusual. You know, so most communities, you're going to see a change.
If we dig into their, like, I don't want to look at a Cornwall budget, but if we looked at like a Harvard's budget, we'd be able to see what's funded from the city. And
It's hard, you know, yes and no. I mean, that's the problem, because that's, I know Mr. Mercer asked me that question. And, you know, I go through audits, but sometimes it's, you know, an audit report should be really a standardized report. But you also have auditing firms that, you know, it's really up to the city or town finance department. You know, so when I was a finance director, I did my own audit report. Those were my financials. Many times you see a finance director that does not compile their own financials. The auditors do it. So if you hire an auditor, their way of doing it sometimes are different than another auditor. It still meets because they're the ones auditing your state. So they compile it. I would always compile my own financials, but you'll see some communities the auditors compile it. Many communities the auditors do compile it. So different auditors do it different ways. So sometimes it's hard to see. I can go through them and try to figure it out, but sometimes I can't. ECS, we actually sent out a survey. Ann Alfano sent out, Ann's the account manager, to she's a part of the membership. I'm a member too, but she's on the board and she's really involved, so she sent out an email. And not all communities respond to her email, 169 school districts, but the 30 or 40 that responded back then, everybody receives the excess cost. And there was one that kind of shared it between 80-20. I think the board got 80, the town got 20, town or city got 20.
Why would the city not give us that money if it's?
Well, state statute says it should go.
Should, could, it would, but like.
I mean, I know there's a few communities out there when I was in Clinton, Clinton did not take the money. But I do remember the superintendent, Jack Cross, a great guy. I mean, he said, I had that question with him one day. I said, Jack, why don't you? And he goes, you know, Kev, we do okay in our funding from our municipality. Politically, I don't want to make an issue of it because, you know, we're above the average. And, you know, once you think about it and you think about the reason, you go, yeah, I guess I can understand. Why rock the boat?
Well, I mean, it's not to rock the boat.
Yeah, we're not.
Our ship is sinking.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't get to 170, that's for sure. You see this is really just a summary comparison. You saw that in the transmittal letter. You really need to, you look at this shows how to 0.34%, but that's why I really wanted to show you the combined on that schedule 5 or 6, where it really shows combined between, general fund, grants, and the local general fund combined, because it really tells you, we're moving things around. So this is what you saw in your transmittal letter, all the changes out there. The budget analysis, I actually went through it. There's more detail in the transmittal letter than this. I think it's a little more, the numbers are the same, but it's more detail, hopefully better explanations. And, that's about it.
Should we go back in session?
Second.
All right, we are now back in session. Please peruse the consent agenda. I believe the acknowledgements have been made, but if there are any other things that folks need to take off, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Can we just take off E briefly? I know, I'm sorry.
What is it?
What?
Oh, there it is.
What? Listen.
Where's Dr.
Okay.
Tucker? Is she back there? Oh.
Oh, good.
We just took E off consent agenda. so-
E being the personnel
The
new
person-
position request for the two
Right.
high school welcome facilitators. I thought that was, she has that on there, but I thought somebody else's baby, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just that we put them through at the same time. Personnel approved the job description, so we put the request through at the same time.
Right.
Right, so there's actually two.
Yes.
They're not attached to a union, so once we lose funding, they are no longer, we don't have to pull them under.
Right.
I don't know if that's
Unless, of
necessarily
course, we
true,
see it
but-
being wildly successful, then you have to reassess what goes to get.
Right.
I mean,
right.
That's the reality.
Okay, I mean, that was just my reiteration, I guess, to myself that,
The funding's over.
right, because if we lose the funding, you know what I mean, sometimes we have to keep the people, and we don't necessarily can't afford them.
Then you lose something else to keep them, or
Right.
shuffle more things
But
around.
we don't know how valuable they are until we have them to see how valuable they are. so-
Right, especially, right. Okay, I'm good, that was my only question.
Motion to approve item 4E?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by
Aye.
saying aye. Those opposed? Okay. All right, new business. A, approved legal, okay, so, yeah, we do.
For item 5A, I'd like to motion a settlement between the Consolidated School District of New Britain and Mrs., I'm going to spell the last name because I can't pronounce it, SZNAJ. A settlement in the amount of $1,143.96, and this is as a result of an incident with her car on one of our properties.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Update them. We did that already. We don't need to do anything with that. Go.
I'd like to motion to postpone item 5C, which is the superintendent's budget request, to our June 18th meeting, so the board members
Second.
have time to digest.
All those in favor of postponing to June 18th? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Motion to approve a bid waiver and purchase order for the Stop the Bleed trauma kits, item 5D.
Second.
Discussion?
This kit, the request is actually a very trimmed down request.
I was
from
gonna
one
say, it looks
Mr.
much better.
Halleck originally put forward. It still serves a need that we want to have in our schools in the unlikely event of a traumatic incident, and makes us a little bit more prepared for those. And I believe Ms. Sarah also mentioned that some of the funding that we're originally looking to this is going to be diverted elsewhere, I believe.
Right, we're looking into the
ID
swipe
badges.
access at New Britain High School on the outer doors, and potentially a couple of other safety measures at some of our smaller learning communities.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, go.
No?
Oh.
Sure.
How did they determine, because it's, very trimmed down, so how did they determine how many and where these could still be effective?
Mr. Sliney, do you want to address that? Or?
Yeah, rather than, there were 35 kits that were going to be wall kits and distributed among the schools, I believe. One or two for each school. The high school would have had more. The middle schools, I think, would have had 2. And then there were also going to be 700 in-classroom kits. The 700 in-classroom kits have been eliminated. It is felt just to have the wall-mounted kits, 1 or 2 or 3, depending on the size of the school, much the same way as we have the defibrillators. We just have 1 or 2 in a school in a location that was deemed to be more sufficient and a wiser use of the funds, considering that some of the items in the kits do have expiration dates.
So nothing actually in a classroom?
Nothing in the classroom.
So how much did it end up cost?
12,000, right?
25,000 versus 85, I think it was.
Yeah.
It's like a $55,000 cost savings in proposal.
Part of the reason for staying on the wall mounts and keeping those was just fear that they might get lost in the classroom or damaged, and then investing in another $50,000. And then when you think about having to replace the items that are, that have
Disposable and
a
expiration
expiration date, that's manpower, right? And it's having to go in and do all of that. So, you know, we feel confident that with just those number of kits, that can be done and maintained and updated and kept updated. And it actually has more equipment in it than those smaller ones did.
It's also worth noting that a number of what goes into that is those wall mount units, and so that's a non-recurring cost, so that won't be, those are $170 each or $5,000,
Right.
almost $6,000 for the wall mount alarm boxes that these will be kept in. That will not be a recurring cost.
And prayerfully, we never have to use them.
Right.
Ms. Conley, did you want to add something?
No, I'm just, you know, I'm a proponent of having them in the classroom, just based on the events that have happened at all of the schools. It's always in the classroom, it's not in the hallway. The teacher has to leave the class to go out and get the supplies. So I mean, I get the shelf life and I get all that, but at least we have these, is the best
The
way to
last
put
few
it.
actually have happened in hallways because they've been pulling fire alarms.
Right. Well, hallways in classrooms and actually say, pull the fire alarm so they go outside.
And they're outside, and we don't have any outside, so you can
Right.
never be, you can never have any,
It's
every
a step in the right
eventuality. You've
direction
got
for
it.
preparation. Hopefully, you know, I mean, you
And
never want to have to
hopefully, we
prepare
never
for them.
have an incident that would require use of any of them.
Better than what we had.
Right.
Because we didn't have any.
Right. So that's why I wasn't really going to comment, but.
But I get it.
Because it's better than not having it.
Mr. Sanders?
Yeah, just a general statement. I think that, you know, having it in the school versus not having it in the school is important. And as long as the teachers and staff members and even some students know where these things are, just like a defibrillator, they can be helpful versus not being there at all. So I was not going to support the other
larger
way,
amount.
the larger amount. I would not have supported it. This I can support because I think it reduces the cost and makes the maintenance much more appealing as a whole.
I also just wanted to commend Mr. Halleck for reaching out to the community partners and emergency response teams and finding out what they recommend, talking about the trainings, what things that they would support, and things of that nature, to be thorough about it. He is definitely thorough, so that is good. And I appreciate him working with Superintendent Sarah to figure out what exactly we're going to use as far as safety precautions going forward, and that we are looking at these steps and figuring out how we can best serve our students fiscally, too. I mean, we have a fiscal responsibility, and we also have the safety responsibility, so. Yes.
Comment/question. You know, agreed, I definitely would not have been in support of the big number, especially when I have concerns and have heard concerns from people about the security of the schools, right? So if it's relatively easy to get into schools, and basically I think we need to worry more about some of the preventative actual practices. So I'm glad to hear that you're looking at something else like swipe, but could you explain what that means? Swipe for teachers, for students,
For students. Teachers already swipe in, they have their badge, and so it would give those badges a purpose for kids.
Right.
And I can get a better detail from Carrie Lynn Major, but they're talking about single point of entry, not necessarily one doorway, but a cluster of doorways.
Right.
Where students enter and they have to swipe to get in. I know the Cadillac version is to have swipes at every one of the classroom doors as well. That would actually, you know, but we're not going Cadillac, we're staying with the
Just
Ford.
swiping one.
And so having the kids swipe in the morning, we know they entered. And so even just for
Is it
safety
the swipe
purposes.
company?
I don't know
Is it
which
that-
company.
Okay.
That I can't answer. It'll be coming up, and then we can ask more of those questions. I know Mr. Smedley and Ms. Major are looking at that now. And so that's something we want in place for the next school year.
And so somewhere else I've used the swipe for students, and not the Cadillac version with the classrooms, but there were 2 points of entry in the building where students had to swipe in the morning, and if a student sat in your class, you could see on the attendance that they did not swipe in, and that way you could send them back. But they also had the swipe at the nurse's office, counselor's office, and like where they go for discipline. So there were
volatile
some key
places.
points, and that
Very
way
smart.
also in attendance, a teacher could see, they're not in my class, but they're at the nurse right now, and I know they're not cutting. And it helped with a whole lot of a myriad of those issues, so just putting that out there as
I think that's a great
have a
thing.
discussion of key places or points to have this at.
I think it's also helpful to have that information for how many times kids are accessing. I think it's just good information to have, talking about the culture, climate in the building, and what the kids need. Yeah.
And then you also have just the issue of practical logistics, and you don't have metal detectors in schools because it just takes a whole lot of time to get people through them. And, you know, it's like, at the Capitol, you have to go through a metal detector every day, and anytime there's a big hearing, there are a zillion people in line, and it takes forever. And then the control to get in and out of the actual Capitol building, you go through a double set of doors, where you can only have, you know, 2 people in at a time. It slows everything down. And
Right.
that will be, if it doesn't work efficiently, kids will figure out a way to
Get around it.
Get around it, and then it'll just, you know.
I know that it's related to this, but I know we're going to have, that's probably going to be something that comes before us, and maybe have some of these
Talking about swipe cards.
The swipe,
and
the
having-
presentation is coming.
Yeah, you know, and
Yes.
have a presentation with some of these concerns.
Yep,
Thank you.
sure.
So should we vote on this?
We tried. We're going to vote again. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Personnel, to approve the bid waiver for engaging schools to provide professional development for PK-12 administrators.
Motion to approve the bid waiver, purchase order for engaging schools.
Second.
Discussion?
I just had a really quick question as far as in terms of outcomes and feedback on this, and it talks in there about having the people participating in the professional development to have feedback. Is there going to be any sort of reporting out to the board at the end that we can get from them as well?
Yep, Dr. Sanders can actually address that.
Thank you.
So currently Engaging Schools is one of the partners working with the high school. So what we're trying to make sure is that all of our schools across the board to create our pre-K-12 system is engaging in the same process. So one of the bigger things that they're working on with us is our structure for MBU in terms of what administrators will be required to do as we create our system and culture of collaboration, which we know does not have a firm structure throughout all of our schools, which is why we went to the redesign in terms of the 3 hours needed for each. And so this is just the starting point of the 3 days for the admins where they're going to be involved with them to start that process. You have a question, Nicole?
I'm just thinking, I remember meeting Dr. Perkins and him talking about climate and administrators, and we had him to dinner in Christmas, I believe, and so I'm wondering if he is collaborating as well with these meetings.
No.
No?
No, this is just engaging schools. This is grant dollars, and we are benefiting from these grant dollars through Commissioner and the other school grants so that all of our admins can partake, even if it wasn't their school, they got the grant dollars. So we have all of our administrators together benefiting from the ones who have grant dollars. Does that make sense?
Thank you for your book.
Yeah.
So it's of no cost to us technically.
It comes from the grant dollars, that's right.
Shouldn't say no cost.
Yeah,
It is not local funding.
Kevin just looked
No
up, we got
cost
all
to us.
that.
That's not what I meant. No, it's not from local funds, is what I meant. Okay. Any questions?
And so a part of the feedback loop too, one of the things that we're working on is every so many weeks, we will be asking teachers for survey data that we will also be presenting throughout the course of the school year around our collaborative structure that we're putting in place.
Thank you.
Let me see if I can use it for PD hours, because I have PD hours.
Yeah, come.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Review approved revisions to policy 0521.00 on non-discrimination.
Yes, I'd like to motion that we approve the proposed revisions to policy 0521.
Second.
There's very few changes in the policy. It mostly was just a couple of clarifications and updating the language to be more reflective of
Our current state.
of our current, where things are currently housed, and also some other suggestions from the policy committee, mainly at the bottom, talking about, how we must provide the form for the complainants. They, just making it so it was more of a standard formalized process. So very few changes to the actual policy, just really typographical.
Where's the form housed?
The form, I believe, is housed in talent.
Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And the last one is to review and approve the new policy 0523, equity and diversity.
I'd actually like to motion that we postpone this policy to 0523 to our next meeting for a second reading. And I'd like to urge all board members to really take time and read through it carefully.
It's a new, right?
It's a new policy. It's one that we did not have on the books, and it really speaks to a lot of sort of philosophical ideals that we've been discussing as a board, but putting it in policy means,
We stand behind it.
we're standing behind it with more vigor and more, accountability. And obviously, the board's welcome to make revisions, but it's definitely worth a detailed read.
Second.
Did you want to say?
No, I was
Okay.
going to second that motion.
All those in favor of postponing for a second read for June 18th?
June 18th, yes.
For Monday's meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.